The biggest stadium of every sport. Now, when I say every sport, I mean most major sports. Because some sports don't really have stadiums, and some sports are just too obscure, like buzkashi, where they drag around a goat carcass. Also, I haven't included sports with like a tiny playing surface, like boxing or table tennis, because they can pretty much play wherever they please. With that being said, let's get into it. We'll go in alphabetical order, starting with Aaron A. Aronson Ball. I'm just joking, of course, that's one of those obscure sports that I won't include. We'll actually start off with auto racing. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway is a very famous place in motorsports. It's known the world over, and it's definitely what the city of Indianapolis is most well known for. It was actually the first racetrack to be called a speedway. Tokyo Aquatics Center. Well, outside of the Olympics, aquatics doesn't really get much attention, so it makes sense that the Olympics Aquatic Center is the biggest in the world. However, the venues are usually downsized after the Olympics, so this one might not be the biggest for that long. Now on to baseball. Dodger Stadium is built into a ravine and has a great view of the mountains. Interestingly, it was built on the site of a former cemetery. It's also one of the oldest Major League Baseball stadiums. Basketball, the Philippine Arena. The Philippines loves their basketball. Sometimes they get a bit carried away, but basketball is just one of many uses for this arena, including church services. Cricket. Motera Stadium is the biggest stadium in the free world, in a land that absolutely loves cricket. Since it opened, it hasn't actually had the chance to have a full crowd for a cricket match, but you just know the atmosphere will be incredible. I like the orange and blue seats as well. Cheese rolling, Audi Arena, Oberstdorf. Cheese rolling has gone international, and it's now the second fastest growing sport behind cow tipping. Germany is leading the way in cheese rolling infrastructure. As you can see, those huge ramps are where the cheese is released, and those are the runners' starting blocks down there. There's also a high-tech matting on the slope that helps keep the cheese from growing mold on the way down the hill. Wait, does a rolling cheese gather mold? Don't know. If you're wondering why there are multiple different sized ramps, well, the big ramps are for the big wheels of Brie, Camembert, Gruyere, and Gouda. And the little one there is for Baby Bell. So cute. Cycling, Kitakyushu Media Dome. Cycling is really big in Japan apparently. It's known locally as Kirin. It was one of only a handful of sports that you were allowed to bet on back in the day, which led to its popularity. Esports. Chongqing Zhongjiang Esports Stadium. That sounds like I'm making fun, but it is actually Chongqing, I promise. They love their gaming in China, so much so that gaming addiction is an actual epidemic. And you might say that it's not a real sport, but the extreme duress that these guys and girls go through is up there with the likes of rugby, MMA, and marathon running. You just can't really see it. I mean, if they get an itch, they can't scratch it. And they can go several minutes without blinking. And just look at that thumb movement. You can't look at that and tell me it's not sport. That is majestic. These people are modern day warriors. Anyway, back to the real sport. Now onto the sports that call themselves football. Except for rugby, we'll just call that rugby. Starting off with American football. Michigan Stadium, or the Big House as it's known, is just a big bowl of loudness. It doesn't really look like it has a capacity of over 100,000, but the single-tier bowl structure combined with bench seating, is a little deceiving, makes it look a bit smaller than it is. Canadian football, Commonwealth Stadium. Yes, it is a different sport, just barely. As you may have noticed by the name and the fact that it has a running track, it was built for the Commonwealth Games, which is kinda like the Olympics, except it gives Australia an inflated ego. Association football. Mayday Stadium was the brainchild of the OG Kim. It was built out of jealousy that South Korea was hosting the Olympics. You could argue that it isn't purpose-built for football due to the track. So the biggest purpose-built football stadium is Camp Nou in Barcelona. Australian rules football. The MCG is by far the most iconic stadium in Australia. It hosts the final of the AFL every year, with a few exceptions, and it's the biggest stadium in the Southern Hemisphere, which in my opinion is one of the best hemispheres in the world. GAA. Well, it's more than one sport, it's actually the governing body for Gaelic sports in Ireland, and it's strictly amateur. The main two sports of GAA, hurling and Gaelic football, use the same stadiums, and Croke Park is by far the largest. It's also the home to the GAA headquarters. Hurling, despite it being a synonym for throwing up, does actually look pretty fun. Golf. It's not really a sport known for its stadiums, for obvious reasons, but there are some, the biggest being the stadium course at Scottsdale. I can't even concentrate on my swing if a kangaroo is looking at me. I can't imagine what it's like to play golf in a stadium packed full of people. Hockey. Gaddafi Hockey Stadium. Yes, that Gaddafi. Despite cricket being more popular in Pakistan, hockey is actually the official sport, whatever that means. And it's actually bigger than any cricket stadium in the country, but not for long. Horse racing, Tokyo Racecourse. One of the oldest sports going round has some of the biggest capacities going round. Mostly standing room though. Tokyo Racecourse has about 14,000 seats. Ice hockey, Bell Centre. Well, it's one of the main things that Canada is known for. And not only is it in Canada, but it's also home to a team called the Canadians. It's a good thing they chose the name Bell Centre, otherwise it would have been Bell Arena. Rugby League, Stadium Australia. It was built for the 2000 Olympics and is currently home to a few rugby league clubs. It occasionally hosts other sports as well, including international soccer. Oh, I'm sorry, football. Please don't kill me. Rugby Union, Twickenham Stadium. Although Stadium Australia hosts the occasional rugby union match, that makes up a very small portion of the matches that take place there. Twickenham, however, is the purpose-built home of English rugby, so it has to be Twickenham. I love watching international rugby at Twickenham. There's something special about that stadium. Tennis, Arthur Ashe Stadium. It's the main stadium for the US Open. It originally didn't have a roof, but one was added in 2016. The tall, steep seating provides an excellent view for the spectators and an intimidating atmosphere for the players. Unless you're Roger Federer, of course. Everybody loves that guy. Track and field. Well, it's Mayday Stadium again. Yeah. But I think the biggest track and field only stadium would probably be the University of Oregon's recently renovated Hayward Field. I could be wrong on that one though. And I've sort of just lumped in all winter sports together because Well, I haven't got all day and neither do you, probably. Holman Kolbakken. If you couldn't tell earlier, of course, that so-called cheese rolling stadium was a ski jumping facility. The biggest ski jumping facility is in the home of winter sports, Norway. Which is fitting because there is no way I'd ever ski down one of those ramps. But seriously, 70,000 people watching ski jumping. They don't even do tricks. I'm joking, of course, that would actually be pretty cool to see. And that's basically all the major sports. I may have missed a few, but if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. It's free for the first 10,000 months. Thanks for watching, have a good one.